Hello and welcome back to The Dive presented by Honda. This is a special episode. We are drafting our fantasy teams versus the members of Facecheck. Welcome all. Welcome.
What's
Hey,
up?
thank you for having us here, man. It's fun.
Yeah.
Ready to throw down, get some trash talk for the entire season?
Nice.
This is just going to prove that who has a superior podcast. That's what we're
There
doing.
it is.
This is
Exactly.
it, yeah.
I mean,
This is
it's really
solidifying
beyond
it.
that, right? It's like, who's the superior human being? My entire self-worth is based on my results in this fantasy draft.
Oh,
Same.
you must have been feeling bad last year or last
Oh, yeah.
because
Yeah.
you were
Didn't
second
Gabby
last.
win? Who won?
LS and I were in a dark place last time, we've just been up late every night, strategizing, trying to figure out how to turn this around.
Mock draft after mock draft.
Why we're doing a second one is for Azael's redemption. I also feel like we should bet something, like the winning podcast
Ooh.
gets shout outs from the losing podcast for playoffs or something
Oh,
during
maybe like
Summer Split.
an ad.
Yeah.
You know what? That's what it is. We should do like a minute ad. Isn't that like what happened with the LEC kind of thing? And you're
Oh,
It's
yeah.
free.
it's free.
that was more than a minute. That was a quality piece of work. Okay.
Yeah, that was Oscar worthy. That was some fine acting from
was
us,
good.
if I do say so myself. All right,
All
we'll
right.
figure it out. That sounds
Ellis
good,
is going to
though.
grief us. We're going to have to do the shout out.
What?
I already know Ellis is going to grief. He's just going to have some crazy pick. Like he's just going to pick
And he's
fudge in
gonna
all five
rationalize it
positions.
backwards.
All right, no more time to strategize.
no.
Then we're jumping in. Let's start the draft.
Oh, I'm on the clock.
Mark's first.
All right, first pick,
Easy
bro.
first pick is Perks. We learned last split the value of,
Nope, you guys are all crazy.
Are we just gonna get all C9?
Look,
What?
Blabber has to be the best one, right? Because he is the biggest differential between him and the other junglers.
Yeah.
this is
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
I actually
strategize.
agree. I think Blabber is
There's
the
the
best.
I
first
don't
pick.
want to be
Fun factor.
last.
I am going a little
Fantasy
slower
noobs.
just because you guys.
Blabber's
Not
gonna
good at
mental
first.
tilt after that MSI. He's boomed.
No, man.
You don't get any points for scuttle crabs. No points for scuttle crabs, Tom.
All right, I'll do it. Fine. The coin flipper. Give it to me.
What?
Jesus.
Oh,
I know.
he
It's
got,
going
like,
to
the
suck
most
because he doesn't
points.
have just a stable rock in the bottom lane anymore there to
What?
let him coin
No,
flip.
actually, I mean, now he might be able to win some of those games. Now that he has an actual.
Yeah, but he's not going to get as many points. That's what matters.
Oh,
Tom.
true. Because the games will actually end when his AD carry has items instead of just dragging on for
Yeah,
Oh my
50 minutes.
God.
Yeah. That's,
Are we
that's
having
the
like a
idea.
deathly feud right now? dGon does it. Tom
This is-
does it.
this is literally what
happens. It's
Facecheck
every
is.
episode. It
It's
is every
literally just
episode.
Me and
Matthew
LS
is the
harassing
most
him about
underrated player
Definitely.
in the history of LCS, man. That's so
Yeah.
something
Well,
like
I'm
that,
looking
man.
forward to you drafting him then.
Oh
Put
man,
your money
God.
where your
try-
mouth is.
he's not
Yeah, better
here.
draft him.
We need the little picture of Definitely.
Hey, how far? I like that. Kobe.
I like that. That was good.
Ooh, last place does get the snake for regular though. Do I want? I guess
What
I
you
do
thinking,
want
Cobe?
Jensen too.
Ooh.
I'm going Team Liquid Strong.
Oh my lord.
Okay. What am
I
I
don't
doing
know, man.
here?
Jensen's been playing some TFT recently. I don't know if he's going to be in form this season. So.
Jeez.
Right.
What you thinking, Azael?
He's short circuiting.
Yeah.
I mean, when in doubt, you just pick a player on a good team because all the team points matter.
Yeah.
So just
You could just
Yeah.
sort by points and do that too. I would recommend you pick up Neo, seeing as how he's the
double
highest
80
point leader.
carries. Have a monopoly on 80
Fact.
carries.
Don't worry about the fact that you already have an 80 carry.
Wait,
Everyone
what
will
happens
come
if
to
you actually just pick the wrong role? Are you just doomed?
It doesn't
or-
let you, I don't think.
Oh, okay.
It's idiot proof.
Oh no!
Okay, good.
It's face check proof.
But that's
Oh,
content.
I see.
Okay, all right.
That was nice.
We need to
Alright.
turn that
Well,
off.
see.
There's more content that way. Oh my God, it's just
Go.
gonna run out of time.
Oh, you took mine.
Closer?
All right, nice.
Okay.
Those
Azael
are
is
actually a lot
100
of points
thieves.
last time, man.
Yeah.
God, I am smoking all of you guys in this draft right now. My next pick is just over. It's already just a brain gap here.
So last time, Azael talked a bunch of shit just like you're doing right now, and he went out second the
Yeah.
last place.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, I believe in my team, dude. I believe in my team.
He did too.
You have one player.
All right, so
You're
he
My
is
one
next pick
player
is
right now.
guaranteed. I already
He's
know what
actually
dGon's gonna pick.
CLG.
What do you want,
I don't
CLG?
even know what I'm gonna pick, bro.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
believe in the team.
I want
Look-
Dom to pick. I want Dom to pick Danny for EG, just to be like, look at this replacement for.
So confident how much better he
I
is.
actually think Danny is going to be good. Like, that's my take. My take is I actually think he's just going to fit in and be really strong on that team.
That'd be pretty hype.
He's good mechanically. Like, I mean, okay, I'm a little bit biased. I duoed with him a lot in season 10, so like I know he's good, right? But like I actually just believe that he's a really mechanically sound player. You know, like he just doesn't make mistakes. I don't know how to explain it.
I've been playing a
Carry
lot of
Dom in solo
Valorant
queue.
with Definitely.
You get
Yeah, I
carried
mean,
in
that's a
solo
pretty
queue
good
and you get
barometer.
hyped.
Like,
Oh,
if
you
he
took.
can
I was
carry
going to
Dom
take
in
Impact.
solo
Impact
queue.
was actually the best pick there. Holy.
Impact was there, dude. The big brain man.
Holy, that's actually a good one. All right, now I got to reconsider.
Yeah,
dGon,
now you got
dGon
it.
is EG. Just go
I
for
am
the rest of the
EG.
team.
Yeah, you're
I'm
EG. I'm
actually just
100
gonna be
Thieves.
EG, bro.
That
It's
was
actually
really good
a
pick.
funny way of showing your support for Definitely, dGon, is by drafting all of EG after they kicked him. You're kind of backstabbing him. That's messed
Yeah,
up.
that's kind of messed up, man.
No. It is definitely one of those things where we'll fly together, we'll sink together. That's all.
You know what? I'm just gonna do the safe pick. Holy, okay, maybe I don't have it locked up. I thought like if
What
I got
the hell?
I ruined your draft by picking Impact.
Well, no, because look, think about it, right? Because Mark already has a mid laner. So as long as LS didn't pick Abadage there, I would have got Impact Abadage, and then I'm just stacked out of this world. Like it would have been just
I
a
feel-
free draft.
I feel like I feel stacked out of this world. Like, I'm gonna have 2 Team Liquid players, 2 C9
Yeah,
players.
of course, because you
Yeah,
got
'cause you got first
and you
pick,
get the
bro.
It's
you
by
got
far
first
the
pick in
best
the draft.
position.
Wow. Nice.
That was really good.
All
Yeah.
right.
Well played, man.
Yeah, I worked really hard to do it.
Who'd have thought the person who gets 3 of the first 11 picks has a good team so far?
It feels really good. I don't
It's
know what to
really
tell you guys.
shocking. I mean, just
Damn,
wow.
Mark, you also are going to have the most players right now. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I got first pick both in the practice lobby and this one. I mean,
Yeah, it's definitely not
obviously
rigged
karma.
towards the dive.
It's
Don't
just,
worry.
I
I'm
got
gonna have to
second
call in
last.
about this one,
Me and
so-
Azael got second to last and last. I'm straight last pick. Instant.
Oh, instant.
Yeah, I
walk
mean,
in there.
LS is doing what we all said we were gonna do, which is just pick the good team.
I-
And everyone's like, but what if I really thought about it and just tried to do something smart here? And LS is just gonna get 700 points from Dragons every game.
Yeah, but every team that has
He's just
gone to
like,
MSI have
LS is
the-
playing League right now, actually. Just like tabs back, clicks C9, goes back to his game. Everyone else is like, let me just think
Gonna
about
scrim against
this.
T1 again.
Yeah.
Here's
I'll
the
be
thing.
honest.
I swear, Neo is a trap pick because
It is.
is just gonna suck this split, and then he's just not gonna get kills like he did
He got
last. split.
so many
Ooh.
points
Like it.
last time.
There's
I
so
don't
many
think he's
points,
gonna
I
do
just
it
don't
again.
think it's gonna happen again. It's just not happening again.
the resident Dignitas hater Dom still dodging them.
Oh, I am literally the resident.
I mean, I
Dignitas hater.
absolutely could have trolled with the closer pick too. I mean, closer got so many points at the start of the season, maybe, but I
I mean,
think
look-
100 Thieves is gonna be better this.
They'll be better
year.
this split.
Yeah,
I was out there like I had like banners and everything. Like Dig is a fake team when they were second, just getting all of the Reddit community to hate me. They're like NA's only team, like the only NA only team. I'm just
This
sitting
player
there like,
had the most kills in the midseason showdown.
oh, okay.
wow.
He also
I like
played
how,
most games.
I like how
but-
dGon's got an explanation for every pick. Don't flame
No,
me.
the impact
This-
pick was actually really good. I think.
Also,
true.
the midseason showdown doesn't count in fantasy, nor will the playoffs this time around.
Right,
The
I'm
season
just
ends in
saying
the
that.
regular.
Yes.
The form was well.
Okay.
Yes,
okay,
I'm
over.
going Team Liquid strong. Goddamn, Mark took my jungler though.
I thought LS was going to take. I was freaking out because it felt like there was only one good jungler left up. And LS
Santorin was actually the worst pick last time for a draft versus result, like for like average pick order versus
Was
the
he
amount of
just
points he
super
got.
high?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
first
he was
round?
picked like
Yeah.
5th or something or 6th average
That
in
makes
leagues,
sense.
but he was
I probably
actually
would've done that.
like middle or whatever in points. He didn't do that well. I'm actually kind of surprised I still got PoE, but I guess everyone else pretty much picked their mid laners already. except for
Core
LS,
JJ
right?
sitting right there for you, Kobe.
I have some.
What do you mean? I got him.
I have some inside.
Oh, do you? Oh, no.
I have some inside info though. I'm pretty sure there's there's gonna be like adjustments this season, like during the season.
Oh, Team Liquid's going to bench core JJ?
Yeah, is that a hot take here with the dive?
Yeah.
Whoa.
You're the worst kind of person. You're like, I know something. You're like, oh, cool. What is it? I'm not going to tell you.
Right? It's like he's right no matter
like,
what.
absolutely the most annoying thing someone could do.
Yeah. You know that pull though, and you're like, okay, well, I definitely can't say it, but I also can't resist dropping it.
All right. I'm liking my team. I'm starting to like
Looney.
that. Looks pretty good.
I feel like the other thing too is that last time we drafted there were 10 people, so very quickly you were like, I hate my team. You know, by like the second round, you're already like, ah.
I was actually the opposite, where like I thought I got value picks because like one of the reasons I got hyped was because I got Sword Art like 4th round, and I'm like, Sword Art's about to give me so many points. He's on a good team, and then he did nothing. Like all my picks that I thought were sick value did nothing. So.
I mean, you had a rough start to the last split.
I did, man. Tactical was getting no points in the early weeks, and then we were eliminated after 3 or 4 weeks with how the system worked. Sword Art didn't really get me anything.
You gotta make it up with the picks and bans.
This is all Kobe talked about was the king
Kobe
of picks and bans.
That's because we were all in the losers bracket or eliminated, so that's the only thing we could talk about. All right, Mark did slip into the upper bracket, but my differential in pick ban points was twice the person with the second closest.
Oh man, this is a rough pick that I'm about to do. Jesus, top lane is looking.
Your team not
scared
anymore. You were,
Dom, you were
good
so
after
hyped.
your first pick of picking Blabber.
I'm still hyped, but like this is where like I'm really hyped on like the first pick. You know, like the first pick, second pick, third pick.
You picked the MVP, and then you're like, my team's insane.
I believe in them.
Look, dGon is normally delusional. He thinks that definitely is a good player. So I just assumed
he's a great player.
Yeah, exactly. So I assumed that he wasn't going to pick Impact there, and I was going to get Blabber and Impact, 2 people that are way above the rest of their competition in their roles. Now I got to fuck the. Oh no. Oh
yeah,
no.
dude. Oh, have fun playing with Fake God. He was an MVP candidate.
No.
He did it. That's an honorable. That's an honorable move. I
mean, EG's probably going to be a top 5 team still, right? Like, I would assume.
I have them 5th, I think.
Danny's ability in amateur to create out of nowhere was really good. He was. Really
click the mid tab and tell me, which one out of them.
That's why I picked. That's why I picked POE, man. Yeah, you were down in the dregs there. There's like 4, and then number 5 is like, ooh.
I also appreciate LS not naming names when he just said click the mid tab and look. People at home can't do that, so no one knows.
No one is able to figure out who he could be referring to.
The process of elimination does not exist. No one's gonna do that.
Honestly, CLG is going to do better this split, though.
True.
They're for sure going to do
better. For sure.
Okay, I actually got my pick here.
I like my team. I feel pretty good about it.
Wait, if I queue it up and auto pick, it will just auto pick the guy that I queued up, right? I'm not going to even risk it.
I wouldn't risk that. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
What are you going to do? Get a drink of water while we're still shooting this?
I don't know, man. Hey, I'm not getting paid for this. I'm just gonna go and just get a coffee, get a donut.
He's got his team. He's out of here.
Yeah, Jesus.
All right, dGon, what's the last pick?
Look, I got stuff to do, Mark. I don't just have Hotline League.
I just follow Travis around, whatever he needs.
Yeah.
Want to be in a hot tub? All right, sign me up. Here I go.
You picked Travis out of all the content creators you could have tagged along.
I don't know if it's I picked, versus.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Jesus. Dang, dude. He's such a nice guy. Is this it? Is this my reach of the draft?
Kobe's sweating right now, living with Travis, trying not to say anything.
I mean, he can hear this whole thing.
Oh,
yeah. No, Kobe's actually loving it. He's turning up he's cranking up his speakers. Thinking,
Send Travis a text like, "Hey, come in here, Travis. Come in."
Wait, hold on, Travis.
All right, I'm reaching here.
Let me have
He's a good guy. He's a great guy. They're now together, I believe. Come on,
Oh,
He's a great guy.
He's a great
says.
guy.
you really took that over
that's
a
the
Dardoch
worst
over
sign.
Jose
That's-
Dioda?
Yeah, it was
absolutely the worst sign.
Dardoch, dude.
We're like, so what do you like about this player? Well, he's really nice.
What do you think he's
a-
going to do?
He's
Like,
a great
He's
guy.
a stand-up guy.
is he
Yeah.
going to handle your press conference when you get last place in the fantasy league? Like, you're going to trot him out there to answer all the questions?
I've
We
got
tried
a
our
bunch of
best.
vets to do that. Yeah, I got a bunch of like I
You
can
don't,
send out
you don't
Afro
even
Moon,
have.
too.
You don't even have to have him do it live. You could just clip one of his talks about toxicity as people are flaming you for getting
Oh,
eliminated.
the solo queue clip that broke him.
Yeah.
All right, I'm doing it again. I'm doubling down. This time I get into the fifth round.
But Sword Art
Why-
can't play
why-
that king, dude.
I'm very thankful that you did not pick Ignar because Ignar got more points last time, and I think they're going to be better.
Yeah,
this
but
time.
TSM is scaling.
Uh huh.
All right, at a quick look, who has the strongest team? Like if we look, who has the strongest team? Is it Mark?
I mean, he got first pick, but I don't
actually
think
really
so.
like
I don't
team.
like the Santorin pick, to be honest.
When you think
I-
about
yeah.
like if you think 100 Thieves has gotten better, if they are going to be like a top 3, top 4 team, all my players are on TSM or 100 Thieves. Like I feel like all those teams are going to get me a lot of points.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I mean,
actually, like
I have
this.
3 TL though, and LS has 3 Cloud9.
Yeah.
I feel like those are much better teams.
Yeah, I feel like Kobe has. Yeah, actually, yeah. Kobe was looking really scary the first 4. The last one, yeah, you know.
Last pick of the whole draft,
Dude, you picked fourth pick. You picked Pobelter, man. What are you saying?
I didn't have a choice.
sounds like you didn't plan, man.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Oh my lord.
He had a plan for the first 3. It was Click C9, and then he ran
mean,
out of that.
Scoop didn't
Wait, where'd they go?
Broxa, LS. You could have stolen Broxa right out of dGon's nose, you know? Just-
the faded words. Click the mid tab. Oh shit.
Come on, Mads, show him, buddy, show him. Visa issues are over. CLG, they're gonna bounce back, and all
right.
profit.
I think that does it for the draft then. We will check back in with you guys, of course, for some good trash talk and in on the bet. But we'll be back in 5 for the regular dive episode. Stick with us. Hello and welcome back to the dive presented by Honda, season 5, episode 19. We have drafted our fantasy teams, and honestly, I feel way better about this one, but I'm pretty sure everybody feels way better about their teams because of the fact that it's a smaller league and we all got better players.
Yeah, because of the fact that our teams are better. Yeah, I don't actually know how I feel. I mean, I'm looking at my team. I'm like, hey, that's pretty good. But then, as you say, everyone's team is actually really good because most of the lower kind of ranked players don't actually have to get picked. So since we aren't doing a 10-person league this time around, so I'm pretty happy with my team. But if 100 Thieves does bad, then I'm gonna be pretty sad because I'm all in on 100 Thieves and TSM. I'm thinking that those teams will do pretty well. And in this format, a lot of the points you get are from team objectives. First Dragon, first Tower, Elder, Baron, etc. So if the team is doing bad and not picking up a lot of wins, then you generally don't do that well. So it'll be interesting because Kobe's like all about TL. LS was all about C9. What was your team focused on, Mark?
It's actually a pretty big mix. I have 2 TL,
okay.
2 C9, 100 Thieves.
You just want to say your players because I know last time we got a lot of comments of people
for audio
being
people.
like, yeah, that they actually want us to say players. So you can just list your 5 players.
So my roster is Someday, Santorin, Perks, Neo, and Core JJ. My first pick, I was first pick in the draft, was Perks, and then it was a snake situation. I think you can probably guess the order I draft from there.
First pick seems like a big bonus this time around with how short the snake
He got
was.
3 of the first 11 picks.
Sounds just like a bunch of salty people who are going to make excuses when I win.
11 picks.
I got last pick. I thought I did really well with it as long as Team Liquid does do really well again, which they did last time too. So I should theoretically still be getting a lot of points even with the last pick. I got Alfari and Svenskeren in the first snake, Jensen, Tactical, and Ignar. So I went.
Go ahead.
I went pretty deep. I said on Team Liquid members because team bonuses are so huge, and a lot of people, mostly LS, was grabbing all the Cloud9 members, but all the Cloud9 members were gone in the first two rounds of the snake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean they went really fast. I was trying to keep teams into consideration, but also trying to get who I thought, like, if there was a big differential between them and the rest of kind of the people in their position. I got FBI, Closer, Power of Evil, Huni, Sword Art was my team, which I'm pretty happy with. Like, the things I was kind of thinking about was, okay, obviously everyone wants Blabber, so I knew I wasn't going to get him since I was 4th, 5th pick, something like that. But then FBI is like a pretty big differential as far as points earned, and I think the 100 Thieves is actually going to be better this year. So I think that he might even do better with some of the points gained. Was kind of thinking similar things there with Closer, who obviously had a really good season as far as fantasy is concerned. And then for me, I was just like, okay, I want one of the top 4 mid laners, because I felt like, beyond, I guess maybe it was like top 5, but past a certain point, it went down pretty fast as far as at least like my perceived rankings of them. Like LS got 3 Cloud9, but then he has Pobelter, right? Which Pobelter is a fine mid laner, but probably not going to get as many points as, Jensen and Perks and Power of Evil and so on. So not Badage. So I think that was kind of my thought process, but I'm not sure. Like, as I was picking the 100 Thieves members, I'm like, am I getting baited here? Should I have just blindly picked Cloud9 and TL? Like, I wasn't really sure, but I'm like, well, I'll swing for the fences.
I thought the FBI one is good. That's a fine super early 100 Thieves pick. I thought the Closer one was a little questionable, though. It seemed like you jumped the gun on jungle there, because the only big difference in jungle like points scored was Blabber and everybody else.
But then it was Closer and then everyone else.
Closer was like a decent amount, but not nearly as much as Blabber.
It's also not like the biggest raw like numbers either. Like Jungler, like Blabber, despite being the MVP and obviously being a beast, I think he was like not even top 5 point earners in the league.
No, Blabber was. He was right near the top.
Was he? If it was Jizuke, FBI,
Perks, Blabber, and then
was Blabber? Okay,
yeah, I think so. Yeah, he was right up there. I mean, the thing.
Either way,
the only other thing I was thinking of picking as a Closer was like Impact, but Impact had very similar amount of points earned as Huni. So I was kind of, to me, like, it didn't feel like it really mattered between the two. Like, that's who got taken right after me when I did take Closer. And at the end of the day, I was basically just thinking, all right, well, like, I actually don't care if I get like what I get between second and last. Like, I just kind of want to see if I can actually win. And that's the only position I kind of care about. So I figured I'd maybe flip a coin, because I think that with how many points he got last time and a big upgrade in mid lane, maybe Closer could really pop off this time.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the early picks are obviously from the best teams. And I feel like a lot of the I just mean like that people are hard targeting versus like someone who you actually think is good, which some people might have fallen a trap into last time with, say, Sword Art being taken early and stuff like that.
I got Sword Art
again early
for the redemption arc. But I took Sword Art. I took Sword Art like 3rd or 4th round last time. That's
it wasn't early. People reached for some individual players last time, and I think we all were like, all right, team is super important this time around. Yeah. But I do think a lot of because everyone is so stacked this time, a lot of the wins and losses will probably live or die by the 4th and 5th round picks. And I'm going up against Dom this week, and he has Danny in there. Like, okay, EG already is a little bit coin flippy, and this is a new player. Like, I expect Abadade, Blabber, and Huki and stuff to do well no matter what. But like, how is he going to do versus Neo, who is also with people expecting Dig to have a bit of a come down in summer? I think those are the things that are going to decide it more than like Perks versus PoE.
Yeah, and length of game, right? Dignitas actually crushed last year. Like, yes, because they performed higher than people's expectations, but also because they played long games with tremendous amounts of objectives taken. They would get Barons, they would get
bloody
Elders.
Games.
They had tons and tons of kills, as you said, bloody games. And we had these Dignitas players all of a sudden just at the top of the standings for points early on, right? They were just crushing. And I remember seeing a number of weeks where it was like, this is the top fantasy point earners on teams for that week. And it's just literally 5 Dignitas. And there were some really funny weeks like that. So you never know, right? It is obviously kind of hard to tell. But one thing that I think will be more fun and kind of keep me more engaged this time around is that we can actually change out some players, right? Not everyone was picked. So if someone's having like a real bad split and is underperforming greatly, then maybe swap them out, right? You have the ability to actually do some GMing, whereas last time every single player was picked because we had 10 players or 10 teams rather in the league. So there's a little bit more wiggle room, which could be fun.
All right, let's move on to our Honda MVP question then for our Honda MVP section. Who will be this summer's most improved player? AKA could pose it as what is the highest value fantasy points player that nobody saw coming.
We could praise it that way, but I won't. I will instead answer who I think will improve the most, and no answering new people to the league. No saying that Abadage is the most improved player because he's taking Ryoma's spot. Can't use that kind of logic.
I was actually gonna say that.
Yeah, no, not gonna work. I'm gonna go with Revenge. Maybe I feel like he had an okay start. And then after, soul killing it, Alfari, and I think he had a couple good Gragas games. I think there was a bit of a come down a little bit. But I think he's going to have a decent split. I don't think Immortals is going to, set the league on fire or anything. But I think individually he could have a pretty big growth between spring and summer.
So I have one. I don't know if you guys are going to call me frauds for it, if you're going to not like this. Tactical. Tactical actually had a really bad spring. And I think that everyone kind of forgot about that. Because of C9, people are focused on it at least. Maybe they didn't forget about it, but
it's
all
got
the
some good memes. The good memes will always stay with you.
He was just dying left and right. I picked him for fantasy last time. He did end up getting a lot of points by the end, but I was already eliminated from the playoffs because it was only 3 weeks in, and he got me not very many points. I think he really did have a pretty huge come down in spring. I know he had talked a bit about burnout and just kind of being tired, after lock-in and Worlds the year before. I feel like having a result that is less than what they wanted, not actually winning, will have got him motivated. And I think we're going to have Tactical having a really, really good split again in summer, which I think would be exciting.
Yeah, that's funny because that's one of the reasons I picked him in fantasy, and he actually ended up with the 8th most fantasy points or 9th most or something, but it was all after you got eliminated already. So you didn't get
scammed.
I actually have had an answer that also is around something that people wouldn't expect. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to see if this kind of reasoning would fly, because we're saying most improved from literally just last split, that performance to this split, right?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to take a similar reasoning to the Tactical one and raise you Someday. Because Someday had a pretty freaking bad performance, especially for his level that you perceive for this player. And I think he's going to have an immediate bounce back here this split, because they brought in Reaper, changing up coaching staff, bringing in Abadage. This is a way for me to incorporate the 100 Thieves changes without choosing Abadage as my choice. And I really do think Someday super underperformed last split, so it'll be easy for him to improve a lot towards this split.
Yeah. I think it's also a thing where a lot of players did improve over the course of spring already. That would have been, I feel the easy choices, Fudge. It's well, can you really say he's most improved when he just went to MSI and just had a really good performance? That's not really.
The graph just keeps going up. He's going to the moon here.
Yeah, maybe.
If he is MVP or something, then you could, right?
Yeah, LS ranked him for this split #1 top laner above Alfari and everything already. So he would have, if you're going by LS's ranking, then he would have to improve on being more than the #1 top laner and just turbo stomp everybody.
Sorry, we ran you over, Mark. Keep going.
Yeah, no, you're good. You gotta be MVP. I think people like Sword Art are also the other veterans that you would maybe do under your guys' line of logic. Also, kind of turned it around a little bit already. He would have been an easy one through the first half of spring, but then he was pretty good by the end. So.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. Another one that I was thinking of is Lost. Maybe Lost having some more time could really start to improve. Alongside Sword Art, obviously he was newer into the scene, and there was big expectations for TSM, and they did fine, but I don't think they lived up to some of the expectations, given that they made this huge investment into Sword Art. A lot of people were hoping for this super dominant double lift Sword Art bottom lane, which obviously didn't actually come to be. So if Lost could really improve for TSM, that could make a huge difference for them. All right, patch 11.11. Talking about meta coming into Summer Split. What are some of the kind of big things you guys got your eyes on?
I'm wondering if Gwen and Silas are going to be enabled. We still haven't had final call.
Viego?
Or Viego, excuse me.
Someone's stealing someone else's abilities. Dude, I don't think Viego's. I think he's going to get put back in the box. He's going to be returned to sender. He's going to get taken out of the game, and they're going to just go send him back because he's just causes too many problems.
Yeah, I was going to say, I literally had a bug with him like 2 days ago. Go ahead, Azael.
Yeah, I mean, I've still seen in games that I've had online where, you know, he becomes someone, and then permanently for the rest of the game, it just shows their items and their levels the first time he took someone over. And it's like, you can't even tell how strong he is then, right? There's some pretty bad bugs with him. I know I've seen some clips of some other ones. It's just one of those champions. It kind of reminds me of Mordekaiser. It's like when you make a champion that has all these like weird interactions and like different coding, then sometimes it can cause a lot of issues. I would say largely though, when you're playing against them online, it's like there's no issues. But it's just like how high of a risk it is. I think I saw that LPL is going to have them enabled, but LPL obviously does their own thing, so it doesn't necessarily mean that NA and EU and whatnot are going to have it enabled.
All right, big things for the patch though. Divine Sunder got super buffed. I think it's actually just really broken now. I think they super over buffed it. So any champion that has that as a core build is going to shoot up. We didn't have a lot of Wukong, but Arma was already displaying, you know, the strengths that you can have, especially with team fighting with you know, Wukong top. I think that Wukong might emerge, especially if you go Divine Thunder, like Black Cleaver, Sterix build for him, because that was already part of the core build, and every champion that had that as a rushing their mythic went up several percentage points. For solo queue. Also, Hecarim is still dead. They buffed Hecarim's AD scaling. That is not Hecarim that's ever going to show up in pro play. You know, Hecarim in pro play was the turbo chem tank, super speed Hecarim. Unless a team fully crafts around like karma speed boosts for him and actually make it the focal point to snowball, like, you know, maybe a Cloud9 Blabber or something like that. And actually does full AD Hecarim and does like Trinity Force and stuff. That would probably be the only way that he actually comes back in. So even though he's on the buffs there, the buffs were to you know, after attack damage builds and scaling. So I think we're fine. We're fine to have passed the era of Hecarim, and now we're in the era of Udyr, as so many of the pros have been complaining that they want more nerfs for him. Though I think that may be holding a little bit too much onto the previous months, because his power level did, you know, pretty significantly drop. It's just that he still provides a lot of what you want for pro play. Really good front line, very good early control. So he transitions into like a low econ front line with CC later on, super early, while still giving you super strong, you know, early phase.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of what I'm going to be looking at is the kind of carryover from MSI and how much it's going to stay around, because there's so much talk about the jungle champions, and a lot of them did get hit, especially clear speed type hits like Rumble's overheat max damage and Morgana's tormented soil damage and like all these things that made them insane. Like, are they going to be totally out of the meta, or is it just going to, like you say, make Udyr, who was already contesting them, even stronger? You know, like, what does it actually mean for some of that stuff? Lee Sin got hit, didn't feel that significant. I think it was just cooldown on E, which you only need to hit once per wave anyways, really, so like it doesn't matter. It's like some of those kinds of things where I'm like, I think we're going to see a little bit different in the jungle, but otherwise I think the meta sounds pretty similar to MSI.
On those two, it's pretty funny because the Lee Sin was, they halved the buff that they gave him last time. It was a 2-second reduction, and then now they added 1 second back, so they walked their way back on that one. Morgana was almost fully reverted to pre-buff. They left a 5% little reminder that
155, baby. Yeah.
Of what went on with Morgana. I'm just so happy that I think Morgana is back out. The only player that played it pre those turbo buffs up to like 185 was Broxa. So like it's an option if you really want Black Shield. But I don't think we see a bunch of the Rumble Morgana running over.
What do you think about some of the picks that are getting really popular in solo queue? Like, I've been seeing a lot of like Fiddlesticks and Xin. I think Kindred could be in there. It's like, even if Udyr is maybe more of like the default, if you knock down Rumble and Morgana enough, then all of a sudden the ban just kind of becomes Udyr, right? And then it's like you're maybe opening up. Like, I'm hoping that we're going to have not just defaulting to, okay, you don't ban any jungles and you have like Udyr and like just all tank junglers again, power clearing. Do you think we'll maybe get to see some of those more spicy picks?
So here's my take. I've been spamming Fiddlesticks for a very long time. He didn't get there's no recent buffs.
No, but he's getting really popular in solo queue.
The pro players are always very reluctant. Like Fiddlesticks has been one of the highest win rates for Diamond Plus and been very strong for a long time. But very few pros want to play this champion because of the vulnerability to early invades. And it makes it, you have a draft reliance to structure around having lanes to protect against the early invades, or else you cede so much. Because the jungle changes that just went down actually buffed the gold income for junglers if you're not permanently clearing on spawn every camp. They added more gold into the actual kill of each individual camp. Yes, they increased the respawn timers, but for all of solo queue testing, this has actually been a generic buff to junglers because, especially towards the mid stages, people are not just fully clearing. Pro play, I think it will be a lot more interesting, and the increased timers will have a much more interesting impact because pro play does skew a lot more towards that. Whereas solo queue is a higher, weight on getting off those ganks and stuff because there are more options. They result in kills way more often. But I think that vulnerability for Fiddlesticks is still there. I still really am hoping that I get some Fiddlesticks games, but I don't think it's going to be like this instant takeover or anything like that. As far as go ahead, Mark.
I was gonna say I would assume that they would. Some people will play it. I think given that you have the off season to kind of work on it, and there's a number of, it's the early game problems that you're talking about, but at least like the AP jungle stuff has been meta for a while now, that like people have kind of worked with compositions, because sometimes that's a hang up too, where you're like, oh, I only want to play Orianna mid though, I don't want to play with a Fiddlesticks or these other things. So I feel like at least team comp wise, it's easier to slot a Fiddle in minus that early problem compared to like the Master Yi, where it's like, I don't think people will ever play Master Yi if they don't have like a Master Yi comp, which usually means like one or more enchanters ready to buff his ass up when he goes in and stuff. So maybe we'll see that with like Moonstone got a buff. Maybe like Seraphine will come back. She got some changes too, and then Lulu was already kind of in the meta. Maybe, but it just feels like so much more of an investment in a Yi comp versus like Fiddlesticks if you get him off the ground kind of works normally.
I will say just one, because every time another point comes up for that, I want to say the other thing about Fiddlesticks is that he relies so much on vision and the opponent teams not respecting big ultimates. Pro teams play around every wall that you have to check for Fiddlesticks, and vision so much better than solo queue. So that's another reason why I am always skeptical, even with if the champion's very powerful in solo queue for pro play. But I want to see it because they're also better at using vision denial to their advantage. So hopefully.
And even just creating pressure around areas, right? To like make a team hesitant to even walk in to contest a dragon. If there's already a number of pinks down, maybe you're too afraid to even contest it. You can get advantages like that. I'm just kind of hoping that, with Rumble nerf, with Morgana nerf, that we at least have some AP junglers, because I think that AP junglers open up for a lot of the most exciting mid laners, right? Like, I like seeing Tristana mid, Yone mid. There's been like a lot of assassins in solo queue recently that I've been seeing, and even high elo. Obviously, it's different because people like to style on people in solo queue, but like I've been seeing a lot of Talon and Kiana and Zed and these types of picks. So like, when I'm hoping that we can get those and the Yasuos and the crazy picks, you kind of need AP junglers a lot of times to be able to pair with them. And with the two most prominent ones getting nerfs, that does make me like a little bit nervous that maybe we're just back towards more control mages in mid lane, where at least in MSI there was some branching out and some kind of excitement with a bit more of the kind of variety of picks.
Well, guess what? Ryze and Azir both got buffs, so a couple more options there.
All right. So, power rankings time. Coming into Summer Split. Obviously, the standings are going to carry over from Spring, but we're going to be doing it based on how strong we think the teams are going to be in Summer, right? So, we're going to be looking, just individually at strength of teams in Summer. How do we want to start this one off? Do we want to just go through the dive power rankings and start at the top, or?
Yeah, I think we can do that since they're so aligned. We can do that and then just say like, this is where I disagree or something.
Sure. All right. Well, let's start off with Cloud9. You two had them as number 1. What do you think?
I think they're going to hit the ground running after MSI. I mean, I know that there's this is the time right out the gate where there will be the most uncertainty around them with the King substitution coming in for Sven. Obviously, there's a lot to unpack there, as well as the fact that like sometimes people have a bit of a hangover from MSI. I was talking Fudge on Hotline League last night, and he's like, they're starting scrims today on Tuesday, so they're going to have 3 days of scrims on 11/11. This new patch, it's 2 patches from MSI. It's like, right now there may be some bumps and stuff, but I would expect them, because this is entire summer performance, to be back on top by the end. And I think they've shown that they can keep getting better. Like Fudge has continued to improve. I think he will continue to be better in summer than he was in spring and stuff. So I'm pretty confident in them.
Yeah, man. I feel like you're even underselling our side of it as keeping them number 1, because Azael's going to come in with his, Team Liquid number 1, not Cloud9. We got to hype it even more, Mark. You know how much they learned from MSI? They learned so much. They learned if there's an Udyr in front of your face and a Scuttle Crab behind him, you can't go over the Udyr into the Scuttle Crab. Everyone's memed on that too much. It's memed to death. That was the last one. I swear to God, no more ever. But truthfully, going to have that much playtime versus the literal best teams in the world from every single region, I feel like that is just so beneficial. You mentioned the individual improvement from Fudge. I feel like the only arguments that you can try and use to take away from Cloud9 are the hangover one.
Let me do those arguments. Huh? So let me do those arguments. Get out of here.
I'm boxing you in as well. You're
a cheat.
The only arguments are the hangover one, which is real. That's legitimate. We've had even, from any international tournament, they always come back exhausted. They have been playing on, older patch, so haven't been, as much solo queue, even though tracking them over there, they were playing a lot of EUS solo queue as well. So it's not like they're coming in, what is Gwen, right? And then the other one, yes, the AD carry swap. We got to address this with King and Sven. I think that, yes, it's a slight hurt to them in the short term, but they can easily put Sven back in at any time. Jack in the video stated Sven can easily earn his spot back. He's going to be fighting for it. And I know a lot of people are kind of underestimating King, who did quite well. So it's not like this huge drop off a cliff for the number 1 team that won the split and went to MSI. I'd say the only way that it would be a really big deficit is if there are actual hurt egos and communication and irreparable damage done by inside drama or something.
So here's my thing, right? They finished 1 game apart in spring. I don't think Cloud9 is going to be some awful team in summer by any means. I do agree with a lot of what you guys have said about getting the advantage of the practice at MSI. I would say though, there is a pretty big relearning phase when you bring in someone new and someone who actually doesn't really have the experience in the LCS, right? Yes, he did play in the OPL. Yes, he was playing in Academy, but you have to learn the system within the team. So I do feel like that erases some of your learnings from MSI. And I also feel like you're underselling how big of a change this is. Whether or not King can be good, yes, I think he can be good in the LCS. But Fudge was the best Academy top laner and was terrible when he first came in. There's no guarantee that King is going to perform on the level of Sven right away. I feel like it's interesting because at first there was this one swing one way where everyone's like, oh my God, Cloud9 are trolling. They're going to be terrible. Who's this King idiot? And then everyone's like, no, King's amazing. You're all dumb. It's not a difference. And it's kind of gone the other way. It's Sven has been one of, if not the best marksman player in the LCS over the last couple of years. He played actually really well at MSI overall. There are games to criticize, but him and Vulcan were actually winning a lot of 2v2 lanes, getting kills in these 2v2s in a lot of the games that they were doing very well. I do think it is a pretty big hit personally, I think that Cloud9 will still be very good by the end of the split, whether they go back to Sven or whether they get used to playing with King. But I do think that that gives TL an edge, right? They are playing with the same squad. They started scrimming on this patch like weeks ago. A lot of the teams have already been, practicing before MSI ended. Scrims had been starting, I'd been hearing from some of the teams. So I do think it gives them an edge. But at the end of the day, we're arguing over like first versus second here, right? And it's just like a kind of going to come down to how big of a difference that really makes. The other thing I would say is I do feel like it has hints of some of like team drama stuff, like when Sneaky and Jensen got benched, and that is another concern for me. When you talk about like personal conflicts, I don't buy that Sven is benched for performance reasons, right?
I didn't say that.
Exactly. Yeah. So if he's not benched for performance reasons, then he's benched either for something else, for a personal thing. Like, I don't know what's going on, but maybe he just like didn't agree with the play style thing. Maybe, he wanted to take a break. Maybe like, we don't know what's going on. But it does kind of have those hints of like, ooh, like something's weird here. Maybe there's some issues within the team. And I think that can affect the team as well. Like, again, by the end, I think Cloud9 is going to be doing really, really well. I just think that TL will have a hotter start as a result.
I feel like we talked about like the fact that we're trying to do summer isolated from spring, and so like we kind of talked, and we're planning on taking the records just from summer and kind of pulling those out and saying who did the best in summer. So when we say C9's best, we expect them to get the most wins of just the summer split. So to that point, like I think that's the way that they wouldn't be first, is if it is a longer lasting issue with Sven. Because King can come in and, like you said, maybe he sucks, but I don't think that would hurt them enough to drop a ton of games and then they're screwed. Maybe that does knock them out of first because it is pretty tight with TL. But I would be much more concerned, to your point, about like, okay, there's probably something more beneath the surface. They didn't give any reason specifically why he was benched. They just were like, hey, we're excited to give King a shot. He's earned it. Good for him. Sven can earn it back. But, like, earn it from what? Like, why did he not earn it anymore? And I think, like what you said, doesn't seem to be performance related. He was pretty good in spring and pretty good at MSI. So I'm leaning on some harsh words. You could tell from some of the interviews during MSI that he was not having the best time after some of the losses. So who knows exactly what happened? But
blaming jungle toxic.
Maybe I didn't say it. The laners sometimes, man, they look at their jungle, they go, "What are you doing?" So I expect though that. They're all professional. They'll move on from it pretty quickly. I wouldn't expect King to start for more than 2 weeks, probably.
Interesting. So you think it is just like cool your head, and then you're going to be back by week 3?
I would think so.
Interesting.
Because Perks and Sven have worked together before. Mithy and Sven have worked together before. I would be more concerned if Sven was this guy who always had these attitude issues, and this was like a new team that can't handle criticism, and he was just exploding at people. But I don't really think that's what it is. So that's why I don't think it would be a long-term thing.
Yeah, and kind of like I said before, like my trump card kind of hinged on just put Sven back in if if things are going wrong. And again, if there is irreparable damage, which I don't think there is done, then that could be a catastrophe. But
it's going to be exciting between these two teams though. Either way, I think like TL and C9. It's felt like that collision course all year, right? They're in the finals of lock-in. They meet in the upper bracket of LCS spring. They meet in the finals again, and it kind of feels like we're heading towards that in summer.
It's funny too because I talked to Jat a bit and like during MSI in the off season, you could tell that like TL are frustrated because Cloud9 then get to take over all the limelight for all of NA for like this extended period, and like they're the only representative, and TL are just itching to get back at them. They're like, you barely beat us. We
had a sub. Screw you guys. You got lucky.
Now everybody's making these NA out again memes, and they just like want their chance to get right back at them. So I'm definitely sure too that Team Liquid also are going to be looking forward to that.
And Jat's still hunting his first championship, right? He joined a team that has won 4 straight and hasn't gotten his title yet. And there's obviously a huge amount of investment in there. Well, I'm less that and more just like, man, like A, you've got to be hungry for it, and B, I would be feeling pressure. Coaches get changed out all the time. I mean, Cloud9, obviously a bit of a different situation, but they swapped from Reaper, who was considered one of the most successful coaches ever. Then obviously Reignover is going to assistant coach. They talked a bit about the pressure there and how they think Mithy would be a good fit. But coaches get changed out a lot. So definitely, on the TL side, I would think that they'd be incredibly motivated, but I would be feeling the heat a little bit. I would think if I was Jat and you're still hunting for that title here with how much money TL puts in and how you came in to a team that had won so many in a row.
Well, I drafted 3 of them on my fantasy team, so I'm looking at him and put some good fantasy points up there, baby.
Kobe's going to be in there DMing him on Twitter.
Get Elder Dragon.
Together, Jet.
Extend the game for Elder Dragon for more points.
Late for late. Slow it down. we need
more.
Not
the classic TL. No.
Okay.
I feel pretty good about TL, given what you said about, they already challenged C9 so hard, and Tactical had his struggles. They had, Santorin with the migraines during the finals. There's still a 1-game series.
Yep.
And, when Jat took over, they were the 9th place team, and he got them to Worlds, and they were the best performing team at Worlds. So I think Jat's great. He's totally safe.
I think
Azael's
he's doing great. I just think that I would be sweating a little bit. That's all I'm saying. I mean, yeah, people say the 9th to Worlds is fraudulent, and I know you're saying that as a meme because it was 4 straight championships, 1 random blip on the map of 9th, and then you also got Alphari and Santorin, and they haven't won. They want to win. They want to do more than win. TL has always been like, win is the default, and then we got to do well at Worlds, right? So that's what they're shooting for.
I'm super hyped actually for our top 4 battle right now because we'll get to. I have 4. We'll get to the 100 Thieves changes later, but just a little bit more on the Cloud9 Team Liquid one because this is our number 1 and number 2 picks. I think everybody who's not trolling would also carry over these ones. I am super interested in how you think the actual matchup of the first matchup of this game will go between them, because and I know, Mark, you spent all of last night on Hotline League with Fudge, and I heard Travis addressing because I told him to talk to Fudge about the LS ranking of him above Alphari and that matchup, because Fudge was amazing with a lot of the team fights. I thought were the parts where he's shown the biggest, like that Lee Sin play, dodging out on Nautilus, kicking back AD carry, his Malphite play, but wasn't like super lane dominant and smashing that way, which Alphari definitely was. So in the matchup between these two teams, I still, I'm super excited to see how Fudge does coming back from MSI with, how well he did. But where do you guys stand on that one?
I mean, it's definitely interesting because a lot of the finals, for instance, was like Blabber getting top. I think they top-blooded in top lane, or first blood in top lane every single game. One of the times it was Armao, I think, but like it was either way, it was like a mid-jungle domination of top lane, less than like this 1v1 like you're talking about. So I think that's a big one to watch is like, is it still going to be top jungle 2v2? And like if Santorin's in there, is that going to fare better instead of Armao and stuff like that? So I'm really excited. It's Sunday at 3 p.m. So you got to get to the end of the weekend with it. But I would take Team Liquid probably if I'm going to leak my prediction, just with some of the things we're talking about with King just slotting in and the patch, and it's C9 is going to have 3 or 4 days of scrims, it sounds like. And that includes 3 or 4 days of scrims on a new patch, incorporating a new player, and just generally being more out of practice than the other teams in the region right now. Like, it just all kind of smells to me like this is going to be a Team Liquid win. But, yeah.
I also just don't think I could put Fudge above Alphari yet, like in good faith. I think, he had a great tournament at MSI, but Alphari was just like absolutely smurfing on the league pretty much the whole split, right? He was incredible. And while C9 crafted a plan and like executed it incredibly well, and that was obviously including Fudge improving tremendously throughout the split, but it was like Cloud9 as a team beat Alphari more than Fudge beat Alphari. And I think everyone on the TL side would be pointing to, well, we didn't even have our jungler, right? We didn't even have Santorin in there, and like maybe it would have been different if they did. And I do think that Fudge has improved tremendously, and maybe Fudge will prove that like, hey, I've actually gotten that good that fast, and he's just going to be clearly the best in summer. And I think that would be incredible as the youngest player in the league to really be able to have that meteoric improvement that we've seen continue. But for now, I'm still defaulting to Alphari is the best when I'm thinking of not the team, I'm thinking of the individual, what they bring by themselves, the advantage they create for themselves, because Alfari was better than anyone else in the league at creating advantages for himself, right? If it was left alone in the 1v1, you just expected Alfari to be up 20, 30 CS. And that's just something that not a lot of players can do.
I have some stats for people that complain about Santorin not being in the finals. And first of all, I'm not saying that was good or acceptable or even or fair in any way. Obviously feel for Santorin. I've had migraines in the past, terrible to deal with and everything. But Cloud9 did also just beat Team Liquid with Santorin 3-1 earlier in the exact same playoffs, like in the mid-season showdown. So if people are really stuck, like, oh man, it's so unfair, they actually did beat them with the starting roster with a 3-1, even better scoreline than the 3-2. So
of course,
it's not like they only could do it if Alfari gets first blooded every single game.
For sure. All right, let's move on. 100 Thieves here. They were our number 3 in the power ranking. So this is a pretty big change from where we actually had them when you're looking back to spring. I think a lot of people might be not shocked, but in spring we had them as our agreed upon 6th. Now we're looking at them at number 3. Abadage,
that can't be right. Something got screwed up in this document.
Yeah,
I'm trying to Control Z and see if we can.
Because
it has FlyQuest 3rd.
Oh. Kobe.
So something's wrong there. Someone messed up the doc.
No, that's something got pasted over when that column got moved. So that's not the previous rankings.
Oh, okay.
But we actually had 100 Thieves decently high in spring because of their lock-in performance.
Was
and
it
because
4th, 5th or something? Probably 4th.
It was something around there because I remember talking about coming in with the synergy.
There's our ones from spring. I put the correct ones in the document over there.
Because we were talking about their built-in synergy with the Golden Guardians pack and all that type of stuff. It's funny because we had a huge drop off, right? Because of the performance towards the later end of the split, but it's rebounded from that in their offseason moves. So we do have this
third
little
last time and this time according to so it didn't change at all.
Yeah, except that wouldn't be indicative of like what happened, with your real time, because you had a bit of a drop there, right, as towards the end, but then they corrected here with the roster changes.
I mean, they dropped a lot, right? They dropped a lot. They had a very defined play style in lock-in in early spring. That was what people talked about a lot. These preset plays they'd execute on early game, tower dives and bot side. They'd snowball the game through this. They were playing really aggressively. They swapped out Demonte. Obviously, that didn't really work, and they just kind of turned into this like passive team that just kind of felt like they were just sitting around and hoping that FBI would carry them in a 5v5 come late game, right? Someday wasn't really making much happen. You were talking about one of the players that you're looking at to really improve in summer versus spring, Kobe, as Someday, and I think he didn't have an impressive split, and that is kind of like a mark against him. Where coming into spring, people were saying, all right, Someday he never had the team around him, and now he finally does, and he's got to perform, and he didn't, right? They did upgrade mid lane significantly. When you're looking at Abadage, I think that is a pretty huge upgrade. And I think that is why people are, again, kind of like bought into the 100 Thieves hype. But for me, as far as like expectations, coming into the split, I think that Closer and Someday for sure have got to play a lot better than they did in a lot of spring, and maybe Abadage, will allow them kind of more options. If your mid lane is winning more often as a jungler, obviously you have a lot more options of where to go. You can make more plays with Abadage, plays around mid jungle invades, plays around roams towards bot. But the big thing for me is that it's like 100 Thieves have just got to actually get back towards some sort of defined play style where they're actually playing aggressive, playing proactive. And I think that they can do that. I think that they have, a tremendous amount of talent now on this team, like really skilled lanes across the board, where Closer should be able to have so many options. And at the end of the day, it just comes down to like, can can the coaches actually get something going here? Can the team actually come together? Reaper is the new head coach, so that is a change. Zix is out and Reaper is in. So Reaper now, after his hiatus, I was actually shocked he didn't get immediately snapped up when he left Cloud9. I thought someone was going to sign him instantly. It didn't happen, but he is back now and he's with 100 Thieves. So it may be a very different look, right? Like, he was known on Cloud9 as this guy who wanted to encourage creativity, encourage aggression, and I think that's what 100 Thieves really does need.
I'm surprised you guys started so negative with 100 Thieves. I'm the one who put them fourth. You guys both put them third. I thought I was gonna have to
talk about negative for the other for last split. There was a lot of negatives.
Right, but that's my point. That's why I'm saying, like, I don't know if a mid lane upgrade is going to solve all the coach can help too. But I don't know. I feel like they have a lot of issues that they need to fix, because it was a pretty big slide from where they started to where they ended up. And that's they still ended up fine, like the regular season and stuff, but I don't think anyone seriously considered them title threats at all by the end of the split. Whereas before, that was a lot of the expectation, especially after a pretty strong lock-in. So I still think that they have more to prove. And like you said, Abdog is obviously a huge upgrade over what was happening in the mid lane position between Ryoma and Demonte. He's a lot better of just an individual carry threat than either of them would be, as well as being a stronger laner. But it's like, okay, are you guys actually going to work as a team better now? Are you going to be more proactive? Are you actually going to dive correctly when you do go for these dives, and some of the situations that they were struggling with? I was one of the people who had them third last time around. I definitely cooled off, and I don't think the upgrade in the coach and the mid lane position are enough for me to feel confident when I've seen TSM, who I put above them, improving already over the course of the entire spring split, from what was a pretty horrendous start to a strong finish, where they almost beat Team Liquid in the best of 5 as well. And I know the sub jungler situation, but we saw how that played out for C9 as well. So I thought, while TSM felt a little limp when you watch their games, it was still actually a pretty close series versus Team Liquid in the actual playoffs.
Yeah, so you cooled off all the way down to 4th place for 100 Thieves for you. One of the reasons,
the whole point below TSM, I flopped them from summer or from spring.
I watched this 100 Thieves video that they just put out. It's like a meme video with Yasuo, where he's going over the step-by-step plan for how they're gonna win Summer Split for 100 Thieves. And one of the steps in there was to find their team identity so that they always know what to do at every moment in the game. And that sounded great to me. The whole team always knows exactly what to do at every point in the game. That sounds like a really good step to me. He also then said after that, after they find their team identity, they also are going to be able to adapt to any meta and any change and play all the power picks. And I was like, that sounds great too.
And they're always going to solo kill their opponents, and they're going to have CS leads, and the other team's never going to get a Baron against them. Yeah.
Sounds like a good step to me. Okay, so they know the checklist. They're going to get in there. They're going to know what to do at every step. They're also going to be flexible and be able to adapt to anything that surprises. So honestly, as comical as it is too, I think a lot of this discussion for this team, and probably some of these movements here where people are having their heated discussions on who's going to be the world's representatives, comes down to the impact of this coaching change. Mm-hmm. Because everybody is pretty on par with how, yes, this will be a decently good mid lane upgrade. I think it's going to power boost team overall. They previously were very bottom lane focused, and I think that was correct, with one of the strongest, actually probably the strongest duo bottom lane actually for last split at least. Definitely will be contested this split, but I'm so curious to see, because Reaper, like Azael kind of alluded to a bit earlier, has always been one of the most unique coaches in really just loving unique picks. And you talked to contracts after their Worlds appearance, and he was like, yeah, I was just playing around with Graves when it was not meta, and Reaper saw that and he was like, hell yeah, get that in there, super hard, surprise. He loves surprising people. And I wonder, Because sometimes, and this is an age-old discussion that we have a lot of times on the dive, sometimes it's really good because you've got these more unique picks. People are not ready for them. You're kind of, upsetting their expectations. Sometimes it can cause you to be a little bit spread out, and then you don't have as much focus on like basics or, fundamentals. The conceived power picks on the current meta, sometimes get overlooked. And things can get a little wonky, but I'm happy to have him back. I'm happy to have Reaper back because he's gonna make it exciting. Either way, it's successful or not successful, I honestly don't even care. I want to see it happen, and I'm glad that 100 Thieves wanted to upset the previous ranking so much that they felt the need and made these drastic changes, because there was just a drop off a cliff of, not only the performance, but the fan support too. People were just like, what the hell, man? We signed up for this like action packed early diving DeMonte, Golden Guardian squad. And then it turned into like this kind of lukewarm, whatever.
That's true, it did.
You guys think about Reaper? What do you think for the coaching change? It's going to be a big, completely shifting aspect for this team, or are they still going to be super bottom focused, just like a little bit better mid?
I mean, I think he'll change it a fair amount. He's always been willing to, like you said, draft different things. I think the thing is, Someday has never, he has to push Someday to do that probably, because Someday's never been the player to want, it seems like, to bust out the crazy counter picks or the unique things. Like, he's like, give me Renekton 10 games in a row. I don't care. I'm not saying it's necessarily bad, because there's times where you're like, hey, I'm excited to, or like I can be the rock for the team who just picks early the power pick, and then you can go around me. I'm not saying that's necessarily wrong, but I'm just saying, like, if Impact was going to bust out Singe, like, I don't know what Someday's singed pick is right now. Like, I feel like I haven't seen anything super creative from him in a while. And I think bot lane has their strengths, and they were already what they were doing for the entire split. So I would expect it to be more of a refinement than a total like reimagining of what 100 Thieves looks like.
One thing I would say along the lines of the picks is I actually don't think you even have to be creative. I just think you have to maybe like force yourself to expand your pool, right? Like one thing that someday I never see him play is Aurelia, right? And it's like Aurelia is just so good into Gnar. And this is one of those things that like a lot of teams just never do. And people just are so comfortable to blind pick Gnar because they know people aren't going to play Aurelia. And it's like, well, somebody's supposed to be great mechanically, plays a lot of solo queue. Like, why can't you learn this pick, right? Jensen talked about how, he like was kind of being pushed, or maybe it was Cold actually talking about this. It was Cold doing one of his little interviews or content pieces for TL, talking about how he had to push Jensen to kind of be willing to actually play some of these new picks, and felt like they could really fit in. So I don't think it needs to be anything too crazy, but maybe just needs a little bit of that push. But I'm excited to see what Reaper will get done with them. All right, TSM. Let's hop on to TSM. Mark,
I just wanted to jump in on your Aurelia point really quick because it's super interesting. So I've talked to several of the best top laners, Licorice at his prime, and most of the answers that I get are usually that Aurelia is too difficult to practice in solo queue in NA because of the ping, because the champion is so reliant on quick reactions. It is one of the most difficult to practice with low ping. That being said, and it's funny because ping is such a big issue right now, or a hot topic right now with the double F video and everything. That being said, one of my best like online friends, BRNA, is now a Aurelia one trick, funnily enough, transitioning in an NA solo queue and pulls off flawless combos and flawless interactions all the time on it with that ping. But it takes a significant, like more significant amount of time to get your Aurelia to pro play level and like styling on people level than many other top lane champions. Now on a TSM.
All right, Mark, you had him number 3. What do you think?
I am number 3. They were the third best team last split, and I just follow what happened before because I'm brainless. No, I think it felt like there was a larger gap between the top 3 and 100 Thieves at the end of the last split when TSM 3-1 them. And I think that there were some pretty big issues with TSM still. They finished the regular season strong, but then really didn't look great in playoffs. I think the big question for them all last split was identity and like what are you going to play as, because Huni and PoE seem to be kind of different players, and Sword Art wants to be more proactive and this kind of stuff. And I think a lot of the individual points or like players were able to fix some of the issues that they were having. I think Huni started playing a little bit better compared to Lock and Torment, where he was getting memed pretty hard and everyone's like, where's Hanser? And Lost was playing bad and Sword Art was playing bad. I think they fixed a lot of those individual issues, but they still need to work on exactly how they want to approach the game, because it's basically the PoE control mid show, and that's all they really do. They did try Lucian once or twice, but I don't think it ever really stuck out very much, and the only pressure point on the map became Huni. And Spica had a pretty good split, playing like a lot of fast-paced clear junglers like a lot of people and controlling the early game, but they were not like a hyper-aggressive team, and they ended up stealing a lot of Barons and stuff like that. They had a lot of like punishes on other people's bad Baron setups, and like I think those are the things that they need to improve on and take a little bit more ownership, I guess you would say, or agency in the game. But otherwise, I think those are all things that they can actually improve on and carry over the improvements that they were making all spring split, because from where they started to where they ended, it was a massive improvement. And I think, despite the little stumble at the end, they can keep improving.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting, right? These are the two teams that most people are expecting to be on the cusp of making Worlds, right? And you're kind of playing for that World spot. And I think that very clearly, to me, like the 100 Thieves changes were saying, we don't think we're good enough to make Worlds right now. We need to do something. They're going for that. And TSM, with how much money they dumped into getting Sword Art and actually, making this big push to be a great team again, well, if they don't make Worlds, that's an enormous failure. I think that they are solid, and my concerns really are largely around like the bottom lane. I just think it's like so much of what Sword Art wants to do, I think, is move from lane and be aggressive, and it feels like kind of the LPL support style. When you see a lot of the great supports, it's more about the roaming and more about like moving from lane. But to be able to unlock yourself to do that, you've got to be able to have pressure in lane. You've got to be able to be doing well in lane, right? And when you are, that style becomes so effective, because then all of a sudden, Sword Art can be linking up with Spica, can be linking up with Power of Evil, can be making aggressive roams and trying to push the pace of the game a bit here with TSM, because that feels like their biggest problem. Is it's like, you point to Huni as their only kind of like, aggressive piece or whatever, their only piece that's actually going to make things happen perhaps in the earlier stages, Spica perhaps as well. But it's a problem, because then they just don't have any way to like actually create plays on the map, and they end up largely having to capitalize on opponents' mistakes and depend on solid team fighting and these types of things. So I think if they want to get to that next level and really become a team that's actually challenging for the title and really kind of getting to where they want to be again, they've got to have some more aggressive movement on the map. They've got to have hopefully a stronger bot lane duos to kind of like unlock a bit of that for Sword Art, because I think that really could make a pretty tremendous difference for how the team looks.
Double left. Why didn't you just resign? Double left. Honestly, if he had re-signed and he had all of last split had been playing with this team, I would definitely be ranking TSM in
the top
in a world spot right now. But man, guess co-streaming ruined TSM. GG. Honestly, for this team, I do think it is good to respect the improvements that they made. And that's why, I'm right there with Mark. Like, the top 4 discussion is so fun, so heated. And I feel like, and the only reason I went for like the tipping factor of going for the 100 Thieves is I was like, ooh, new shiny. I want to see how this, shit turns out. Because TSM is right there, as well as evidenced by their, later stage performances in spring. And we said as well in the beginning, setting up this team, this was one of the ones at the beginning of 2021 that had a lot of room to grow, a lot of room to improve, 5 different players, 5 different teams coming together, trying to get all these pieces to work correctly together. I will say, as far as the touches on play style that you're referring to, it does seem maybe hard for them to get away from those or out of those, because like some of the biggest moments I actually remember are PoE covering for a play. And then TSM gets a bunch of early kills off of it. But it's not like
or whatever.
Yeah, it's not like they're like, all right, we're setting up these 3 waves to bounce and we're diving on this, and he's roaming down for a play that they are the ones starting out. It was more of, all right, we see they're setting up for this play, then we counter TP or we counter roam or we protect Huni, and we get a bunch of stuff like that. So that would be interesting to see. Because that Spica and Sword Art specifically, the 2 guys that you mentioned, as far as having the kind of attack vision, I guess, for setting up those types of plays, definitely have shown a very aggressive and progressive play styles. But we'll see about the team overall. So I think this is super exciting for the top 4 to get to see what the identities actually end up being. Especially since it feels like, even though there isn't a big break between MSI and we're getting right back into summer, it's a big break for every team that didn't go to MSI, and that's everybody but Cloud9. And they've been itching to get back in there and show us, what the off-season work actually was.
All right, the next 2 teams we have here to round out what we believe are going to be, well, I guess it would be the upper playoff teams. We actually have 8 teams in playoffs, I think, in summer. So technically we do have even more, but our top 6 would be EG, we had in 5th, and then CLG actually, rising up a fair bit there in the rankings.
I actually was so surprised. Both of you guys did that too. I was like, all right, I'm going to have like one of the crazy moves here, put CLG way up. I know that most people are like, oh yeah, CLG definitely going to do better in summer than spring. But when I was talking about this, like I streamed, and everyone in chat was like, what the hell? Why you put CLG so high? Even considering that they didn't have, Finn and Broxa at the beginning, and they had to work through so much stuff. It still felt like most other people were not willing to give CLG this big of a jump, like multiple spots. They're like, all right, they'll be better. You can have like 1.5 maybe. But I really think Broxa gets underrated a lot because he's the type of jungler that is easy to bag on. It's the type of jungler that everybody from solo queue is like, why aren't you in my lane doing stuff? And they love to flame that type of thing. But his performance in the LCS, I thought was quite admirable for definitely CLG's position. And then Finn was doing a lot of hard carry work for them from the top side. Plus, they had some weird stuff with sub and output belter, went back in. There was like, I think there was like a leak where like Turtle was on an interview or something talking about like some attitude stuff, and I was like, oh man, there's a lot of stuff going on here with CLG then. And then also on top of that, so many of their games were incredibly close to being won by like one throw or is this mistake later or something like that. So I was like, you know what? I'm going completely the other way. Full faith. Tip them like 4 spots up. Let's get it. And then you guys all both did too.
I mean, the thing is, you have to remember, we're saying this is only for their back half games. So, like, even though Dig is under these 2 teams, we're not counting the fact they're 11-7 right now. So, like, I think it's very possible that Dig actually ends in the standings ahead of CLG. I would almost bet on it. But I would think that CLG would have a better summer split individually because they, like you said, once all that kind of like weird crap that was going on, which I can't defend most of the decisions happening. Like, they actually ended okay. They were 4-5 in the second round robin. They were able to pick up a number of wins. Like you said, they even had a couple of close games when they were 1-8, the first one, which was totally tragic. And once they put their actual lineup in, they seem to be doing better. Turtle played pretty well, actually, all things considered. Like, Finn looked like a pretty solid threat in the top lane, and I think you can see a world where this team hovers around 500, maybe a little bit above, a little bit below in summer, and that's what I would probably project for them. Because I don't think they're nearly as bad as that first round robin and lock in and like all those crazy things going on.
Yeah, and for me, it's like, you're talking about the big jump up, but also really the only thing that feels like it was much of a swing was Dignitas going down a bit for me, because Dignitas did cool off a lot towards the end, right? They started out really hot, but towards the end of the split, they weren't looking as strong. In playoffs, they weren't looking nearly as strong. So like they kind of got bumped down a bit. And CLG having a stronger second half made them feel like it kind of like a natural rise up a little bit, right? We had 6 teams that were above 500. The only one that I've kind of bumped below them now is Dig. I do think that a lot of the stuff you guys are talking about, CLG is really kind of just stabilized now, and hopefully they're not going to continue to have some of these crazy decisions and issues that did plague them at the beginning of last split, and I think that'll bump them up. But we did kind of jump past EG, who we have at number 5. EG, I am still interested in this team, but it does feel like still a bit of a question mark, right? Like, how well are they going to perform? They are bringing in Danny, I believe it is, right, for the AD role. So like, I think a lot of like how well they really perform and how high their ceiling is going to depend on him. Talking to some people, they seem pretty hyped about him and pretty hyped about, the ability for him to really grow as a player. I believe it was Peter Dunn was tweeting about him as well, seemed really, really excited about him as a prospect and his ability to grow and improve. I do think that EG was already kind of like struggling a little bit as far as AD goes. So I think it's like a fairly smart bet for the future when you're already pretty unstable, if you think you have a good prospect that you can really build around. And I like to see a team actually take a swing with that, right? Because really, what does it matter if you get like 4th or 7th, right? At the end of the day, teams are all shooting for worlds. So if you don't think that you had it with what you already were fielding as a roster, then make a change, right? If Danny and Ignar can be a really strong duo, if that can give them some more, ability to have some consistency down there, or to maybe have some explosiveness down there, because to be fair, like definitely was actually fairly consistent as far as what he brought, but not necessarily dominant. That could really kind of change things for them. And I just want to see EG continue to have aggressive looks, because I always feel like EG looks their best when they are really kind of like going a little bit wild, right? When Jizuke is on picks that have individual agency, and when Svenskeren is on, good jungle matchups where he can kind of be there with Jizuke and they can just scrap. Like that has always been, I feel, where EG does best. And, if Danny can be a strong laner, can be consistent in 5v5s, you have impact, you already kind of know what you're going to get. He's going to be a rock up in the top lane. And then you're just looking for this core 3 for me to be really, really kind of an aggressive force for them to try to get things done on the map. For Ignar, for Svenskeren, as well as Jizuke, if those 3 can be playing well together, setting up plays, setting up invades, making roams happen, then I think EG has a chance to really make some things happen. And I'm hopeful that they can challenge above them. Like I want there to be another team to step up. Right now it does feel to me a little bit of like that 4-horse race for the 3 world spots. And, EG is the one that I'm like, well, maybe your top end is really challenging for that. But it really remains to be seen like how well Danny is going to perform and if that's going to be a realistic expectation.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't even think it's on Danny to like improve for the team, because like you're saying about the aggressiveness and stuff, like they were already the 2nd most kills per game in the league, but they're also the 3rd most deaths. Like they were super aggressive.
They're gonna make some stuff happen.
They make stuff happen no matter what, man. You're gonna have fun watching their games, but I felt like they were pretty mistake prone, and it wasn't just like, I think obviously people talk about Jizuke coin flip, but it's not just him. Like Svenskeren had some pretty terrible games, like some of his Mundo ones and stuff. Impact got dove like crazy even in the game that they won. He's like died 6 times. Like these are the kinds of things that they really need to iron out. And like that's not even considering the fact that like, hey, you have a new AD carry. I mean, he used to go by Shiro. He's got a fair amount of experience for like a young player coming in terms of like he's not proven, but he's played in academy quite a bit. So I have faith in them to stay around, the 5th spot in the league, but they really need to iron out a lot of the other issues that the team was having, not just like an improvement out of AD carry for me.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the only time they really suffered for like, definitely had mistakes was in playoffs. I think that's where the change came from, because there were a couple fights like not timing Tristana escapes correctly, or getting locked up on some key team fight engages that they then lose the team fight and then lose the game and then like lose a playoff series off of that. which kind of led to this change. I also don't think it's going to be move the needle a whole bunch. I do think Peter Dunn always has a growth mindset for all players. Like he loves scouting and building up new talent. So I definitely see that there. It's just for EG, as much as you're like, okay, you want to separate top 4 in that Worlds race. I feel like EG also was so good that you have to separate them from the other bottom 5. Like they really want to join the top 4, but they're also very secure and like I feel they're definitely above the bottom 5. And they could, I think, make those strikes up into the upper group. So like we could split it 5 and 5. I feel like also, but we definitely have to see how they incorporate Danny and his performance actually on the LCS stage, because I also think he's a very good prospect, but especially the solo lanes that EG have are incredibly good. For Impact and Jizuke, I think they can definitely make it work. All right, so we keep on going then. Dig
Cruise.
Dig FlyQuest would be the last 2 that we have for
playoff position.
Playoff position. And then Immortals, Golden Guardians would be the 2 on the outside. Our Dig and FlyQuests are all the same though. So I guess we all probably have a similar reasoning on Dignitas Fairy Tale kind of coming to a bit of a halt in summer, as a lot of mostly because for me at least is because of the level ups of all the other teams. And I don't see like a similar progression for Dig. I know Travis also like released like spending of money for the teams, and like Dig was we'll say they're very efficient spenders for last split, and I don't think there was really any changes for them. So
yeah, I think there's still a lot of young guys. Like their solo lanes are going to continue to improve. I don't want it to make it seem like they're just going to stall out on a skill level, but I think that they were able to have a really cohesive way of playing the game early on in the game in the season that punished a lot of teams, and they had some pretty crazy comeback wins as well. And it's just the veteran rosters, especially like CLG, hopefully being able to iron out all that weirdness, as well as EG coming a little bit more into their own that puts them below them. But I don't think they were a fraud last split. I don't want it to sound like that. I just think the other teams are going to overtake them in summer.
Yeah.
But like we said, it's not even going to be a record thing in my mind. So I think Dig will stay pretty competitive with most of the teams in the LCS.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, so many of their wins, you talk about comebacks, but they were also like off these ridiculous situations, like Baron Steel or some sort of base race or like backdoor, or like they had all kinds of wins where it was just this ridiculous situation where they're way down and they seem to pull it out. And they deserve credit, for pulling off these crazy situations. Like the Neo base defense, I think it was on Zaya, was a really crazy game where they marched down mid and then actually win the game after. But they did feel like maybe not so repeatable as far as how they got a lot of those wins. And
what the blueprint for that is it just laid out?
Kill them at Wolf Pit.
The playoffs really kind of like cooled me on them, and maybe that's a bit unfair, but like 100 Thieves wasn't even looking that good coming into playoffs, and they still kind of slapped them 3-0, right? Which just made it feel like they're kind of figured out, and that really did cool off my excitement on them. Like I agree, they weren't fraudulent. They deserve to make playoffs. They did make playoffs, but also they never really were like in the competition for the very top, and that felt very clear from the playoff results.
I will say that I want the party to continue. I want the Dignitas party bus bumping again, but maybe it also makes it more exciting if we all lower rate them, because then if they're upsetting expectations again,
last place, they suck, they're frauds. There we go.
Then they get to
exactly. All right, we got FlyQuest here next. My biggest question and like is just how much are they going to improve, right? Like Licorice, I think it's fair to say, was over the couple of years prior to this one, the best top laner in the LCS. When you look at like a 2 or 3 year period, whatever, he had been the best performing top laner in NA. And he obviously didn't have an incredible split with FlyQuest. A lot of that is of course, it's much harder to look really good on a team that is not that good. But can he actually kind of like grow into this leadership role? We talked about it in some of the interviews in spring. If Licorice can get to a place, and if this team can get to a place where it feels like they're enabling and supporting him, I do think that could be pretty huge for the team. If you can kind of have this like Jose Diodo Licorice pairing to really become a true point of power, I think that could really make a big difference in the strength of the team, because like as is, it did feel like mid. It felt like bot side was on the weaker end, for sure. And it felt like even when Licorice was having like good individual laning performances, they couldn't really turn it into anything because the map was collapsing, right? They did try some stuff with like split push, where they tried, Fiora game. That was the game against Fudge, where it was like the 1v1 was going pretty well, but everyone got blasted. And then all of a sudden there's 3 people in his lane constantly, and he's just dying over and over, right? And if you want to try to play these side lane plays, you can't split push when you have no map control, right? And when every lane loses and you have no vision, it's like impossible to extend an individual advantage. So I think FlyQuest needs to kind of go to the drawing board here and figure out what they want their style to be. Like, should it just be, early game focus stuff for Licorice and try to utilize, that sort of advantage that maybe create for himself in lane to bring to team fights and try to look for more simple 5v5 style compositions? Like, I don't know. But it didn't feel like they had really figured anything out at all in spring, which made it very hard for me to rank them, above near the bottom, right? So that's kind of like my big question for them is can they actually create a play style that works with the pieces they have?
Yeah, I think not just play style, like individually they need to play a little bit better. I mean, like there were a lot of individual mistakes and laning phases. Bot lane, I do like the swap from Diamond to Dreams. I think they looked a lot better once Dreams came in, and I want to see with the whole offseason with him scrimming that they can make some of these stylistic improvements that you want to make, because, Johnson had a bit of a come down after being hyped up. Licorice had a bit of a come down. Palafox was okay. Jose Diodo was maybe mechanically the star, but he got caught out in a lot of like late game team situations. And so I think they need to not just find an identity that works for them, but also clean up a lot of these individual mistakes.
I was sad because I put a lot of my money last split on this being one of the rosters that quickly, improves a bunch and shows up, with a bunch of improvements. And it didn't happen at last split, so I was like, okay, whatever. I give up. I'll put them down here then. Number, and so it feels bad for me to keep them here because I still feel like my reasoning and these players should have that performance that I'm looking for and that improvement. And so I want to put them higher, but I just can't after being disappointed from last split. But I really do still think the potential is there. Palafox also went over to Korea again, boot camped a whole bunch in Korean solo queue. Like he continues to grind away. So hopefully it'll be better this time around. And then Immortals and Golden Guardians are bottom 2. Everybody had them outside of playoffs, even though I will say I do like the change for Golden Guardians bringing in Solo. I was pretty surprised that he was not on a roster after going to Worlds last year with FlyQuest. And then it wasn't on a roster for spring. So I do think this is going to improve things for them, but not such a substantial amount as we kind of went over for the other teams also improving. I don't think it's going to bump them up, tremendously.
I was still surprised considering that they did finish 7th. So obviously we were all talking about CLG getting over them, but we also all put FlyQuest over them, which I was a little surprised at, because Immortals picked up 7 wins last year. I think that they had a good mix of
You're talking about Immortals or Golden Guardians? Because Kobe's talking about
Immortals,
Golden Guardians.
excuse
me. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I blanked out. Golden Guardians. Yeah, I think the swap to Solo made a lot of sense. Having your top and jungle be such new players was a bit of a tragedy because top lane is so isolated and the timers on when your jungler shows up are so important. How you manage your wave is so important that it kind of became a black hole when both of them were still learning their positions a little bit. So I like Solo coming in and giving a little bit more stability. And I think that will make them a lot more competitive because a lot of the games weren't even competitive, but I still think that they have the biggest amount of problems of any team in the LCS right now.
Yeah, I mean, Solo I think is really strong, but as you say, it's like, there's clearly a lot of issues here. They did swap their support as well, did they not? Or am I
they swapped in
misremembering?
Chime for Newbie.
Yeah, exactly. So Chime is coming in. He his name, obviously, he used to be a Bard One Trick. He is not now. He's obviously a solid player. But I would be excited to see like if he can shake things up at all. I mean, I will say though, Golden Guardians finished 3-15, like they were clearly the worst team. There were a lot of games that were actually pretty close, right? And there was a lot of criticism that was thrown, like to look at the kind of like glass half full. When you think back to some of the like Blaze Olive games, people were pretty critical of like how he was playing out. You know, some of these games on mid laners where they were in a position where people thought maybe they could have won or maybe they could have closed out more quickly. You know, so maybe they can get over the hump a little bit more here with Solo. Like Solo, I think is actually an enormous upgrade over Niles, right? I hope that Niles, you know, can actually develop a bit for himself in Academy, can make his way back up to LCS, that he can continue that story. You know, I want that for him as a player. But I think that like the biggest gap to me between like any position as far as top lane was literally between 9th and 10th. And I thought that it was between Niles and the rest of the league. Like I thought it was an enormous difference between like, you know, him as the worst top laner in the league and the second worst top laner in the league. And I know that sounds really harsh, but there was just so many consistent issues as far as laning where even where they would go for like counter pick and things, like I want to say it was like a Pantheon game I'm really thinking of, but a lot of games where he would over push, where he would mismanage his wave, it would consistently get stuck where he's out of resources, the wave is frozen, and he would die to a gank, right? And you know, I know he talked about like dealing with the jungle pressure, but it's also putting himself in a really bad position consistently to not be able to deal with jungle pressure because he was so easy to gank, because he would always mismanage the wave, overstack it, not be able to crash it, and then all of a sudden it's frozen outside your opponent's tower, up comes the jungler and you die, right? And when I look at the strengths of Solo is always known for being able to actually withstand jungle pressure and still contribute a lot, right? So I do think that this does help plug some of the holes in the team. And potentially the upside becomes larger as a result. You know, if Chime can have a good performance, if Solo is actually playing pretty well and is, you know, like an upper half type of top laner, that could make a huge difference for them because they were consistently really far behind from the top lane. And Solo is generally just someone who's really hard to punish and is going to team fight well. So I think it's a really big upgrade. I'm just not convinced that it's enough to really like move the needle to get them, you know, above some of these other teams, because I do think, like we talked about CLG was closest team to them in wins in spring, but CLG in the second half look actually pretty good, and Golden Guardians never really got there. So I just don't think it's enough of an upgrade, but I do think it's a significant upgrade. And you know, for Golden Guardians fans, you have to hope that we're like kind of like underestimating how big this change is going to be, and that some of the players can actually really develop alongside them. Like a Blaze Olive is going to have a really good split. You know, that could really change things here too.
All right.
You're hoping that the players just develop for next year.
Yeah. Immortals.
Let's get it on. Immortals. How do you think, because they actually don't have any changes from the bottom of the tier list here. So honestly, with it feels like there are so many kind of stories for a lot of the other teams. It really does feel like, well, actually, no, let me take that back. I remember being excited for some of the Raze and Destiny aggressive plays when they were playing like Blitzcrank lanes.
Mm-hmm.
And Raze was going with all in 80 carries as well. Couple Samiras in there. So that was definitely exciting to me. I know, Mark, you had actually Revenge as like your most improved for this split. So lay out that game plan for me and how it coincides with your ranking of the team still.
Well, that's what I was saying is I felt like I was the one being negative on them, considering they were a 7th place team, and now everyone's putting them 9th. You know, that definitely surprised me a little bit. But I think they play a really slow game. And so, like, I think on individual level, Revenge will play better. I hope they give him, you know, keep putting faith in counter picks and playing around him. And I think Xerxes, being a bit more veteran of a jungle, can support him correctly in those situations, though Xerxes did have his own struggles, definitely. You know, like, I think that is why Revenge personally might see a lot of improvement. But as a team, I think that they really struggle to make things happen on the map. You know, they were the second lowest combined kills per minute, only above Golden Guardians. And, you know, they were 2 less kills per game than everyone else in the league, which like doesn't sound like a ton, but they're at like 10.2, and the team right above them is at 12.2 in FlyQuest. They just really, and they don't die a ton either. They're 10.3 deaths, but like they feel like they're this team that is how a lot of old NA teams were the best team in the league, by just like kind of stat checking you with how good their players are, but they also don't have dominant laning players. So it feels like a lot of not a ton of movement around the map, not a ton of global playmaking. They don't fight the dragons super aggressively. Like they're not a hand check team, as some of the LPL analysts love talking about teams, you know, where it's like, maybe we're not in the optimal position, but we're still going to fight you, you know, like that's not Immortals. They'll probably back away if they're not like at the right dragon setup. And I feel like we're talking about more teams like CLG not being as free of wins, Golden Guardians probably not going to be as free of wins, these other teams improving, I feel like Immortals is going to slide down as a result.
That's interesting. I was most, I think, disappointed in Xerxes in jungle from this team.
As the should-be veteran, right?
Yeah, but also, and I guess maybe some of that was due to like nostalgia with some of his old performances, you know, and all the like creative jungle pathing and picks, and it just seemed like in LCS so many of his first moves, when he went to make first moves, would just be like he completely loses a straight up 1v1 duel with the other jungler, or he is like, you know, overreaching, not getting into position for you know, like the dive on bottom side or something like that. I feel like jungle is really important right now, so that was kind of one of my letdowns from last split. Is I really thought you know, Xerxes was going to be more dynamic for this team.
He basically two-tricked his champions too. He was a Hecarim and Lilia only player, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest issue with this team, and this I felt the same way when we were going into spring, is just like they don't have a true carry, right? And I think that it's so hard to win in League of Legends without like that true carry threat, the person who you can count on to dominate in the 5v5s. You know, or to crush through lanes and create those advantages for you. And this is something that they lacked in spring, and I think it's something that they're going to lack in summer. And if other teams are actually improving their fundamentals, I think that can become, you know, even more of an issue, right? You know, you pointed to Xerxes, but like Raze or Insanity probably have to actually step up and have a good split for them to really actually kind of climb in the standings here. You know, Insanity, I think, looked kind of more impressive almost last year than he did in spring split, and maybe that's to do also with the pieces that were around him. But I felt like, you know, last year he had so many like almost moments where he was, you know, really close to taking over a game or carrying a game. It was these minor mistakes, and it felt like he wasn't as explosive in spring. And I don't know if that was trying to like minimize some of the mistakes, but that was something that I was kind of missing from him. All right, the episode already gone very long here, so we're gonna hop into some questions. We got anchor question here to start things off. This one comes from Isaac Chan.
As esports sponsors have grown, it was inevitable that their influence on content would also grow. The rise of less filtered co-stream seems to be a response to that. Would esports be more enjoyable to cast and watch without restrictions on speech? I'm not talking about racial slurs or criticizing government leaders, but more like swear words and cute nicknames for Elise Cocoon. Do restrictions help you be more creative and professional? Hope you guys don't mind the back-to-back questions. Thanks.
So here's the thing, right? Like I'm going to take the realistic approach, is that it's like it has to be sustainable, right? You can have the, like, you know, me casting from my room to like, you know, this tiny league or whatever, and I can say whatever the hell I want, right? Like I can be dropping F-bombs left and right, I can be flaming the players, I could do whatever I want, you know, that's like maybe like, that's cool or funny that he's doing it, but it's not professional. But like if you want to have, you know, the like big production value and the big venues, and you want to have you know, teams and players like making really good money and being able to have this like as this, you know, aspirational career, you also have to have the sponsors with that, right? Because it has to be sustainable. At the end of the day, you know, for these leagues to stay around, and there's a reason that so many esports fall off and so many leagues just die or you know, get scaled back tremendously very, very quickly, and it's because they're just bleeding money, right? And so, you know, LCS and LEC and LCK and all these leagues have got to be somewhat financially sustainable. So for me, it's like, yes, maybe there's some little things that you have to do, like like you have to call out the Red Bull Baron, and you have to call out, you know, the State Farm Analyst Desk. To me, that doesn't really detract from the game in any significant way. And the advantages of having those partners are so huge, right? Like the LCS hype video for summer just came out. That shit was incredible. Like that got me really excited. I loved that promo video. Like that's the kind of thing that you need to have sponsors for, where it's like you can afford to do high level production value, right? And I think that's something to really keep in mind. And for me, like the trade-offs are super worth it. I want the scene to continue to grow. I want the scene to continue to be here for many, many years to come. And sponsors are a part of that.
My take is that you need to have a comparison for this, the little swear words and the more racy takes to have an effect. If everything is you're allowed to say whatever you want and it's all flamey or ragey or aggressive or Elise Cocoon's famous media usage, like that usage has impact on you because it is like, ooh, either taboo or outside of the norm. It's not going to have an impact if you don't have something to judge it against as well. And the fact that the thing that you'd have to judge it against is this wall that you need to have money and sponsors and to have wide appeal and to have the general support is like important infrastructure that also provides contrast. Contrast, I think, is important.
Yeah, I mean, even the premise I find doesn't connect the dots for me. Saying that the sponsors have grown and that has had an influence on the content, such as co-streams. Co-streams were just allowed. Like that wasn't, co-streams always would have been popular no matter what. I don't think the sponsors had any influence on the popularity of co-streams so much as finally allowing them to be a thing. Like they weren't allowed for the first 9 years of League of Legends. It was only in season 10 they started to be allowing co-streaming, and it's still only the LCS. LEC you can't co-stream. I don't think you can co-stream LCK. You might be able to do LPL. I forget exactly all the rules, but like it has nothing to do with sponsors so much as it has to do with Riot and the decision makers allowing it.
Also, real quick, because I see this all the time, like when people are spamming chat with like find and stuff, when Flowers says S word on broadcasts, or people have even dropped F-bombs every once in a while. We don't actually get fined for the rules, or at least I'm not aware of anyone actually getting fined.
Don't believe those lies. We get fined.
There's definitely theoretically a level where you get fired or you get fined or something like that, but nobody has dipped into that, and we have had, to Mark's point, the same rules this for the entire existence of competitive League of Legends broadcast. Like there hasn't been any change in those sort of guidelines or rules or whatever.
Absolutely. All right, we got a Twitter question here from Gonzalo Unzueta. He says, "Hey, big fan here. Always listen to the podcast when I can't watch the VOD. Wanted to know what you think about the LEC players role swapping to jungle. Does it have to do with jungle meta right now, or could it have happened in any meta?" This is interesting. Like, I think that it's more likely to have happened in this meta because it's so much about full clear. It's about, a lot of like less mechanically challenging junglers. If it's like a pure Lee Sin, Elise type meta, I don't think that we're having people just like randomly role swap in, right? It's one of those things where those are champions that are way more heavily execution based. You have to take riskier, more aggressive plays to snowball the game. If it's clear 6 camps on Udyr and then run back and forth in turtle stance at a 5v5, well, most players can do that. So I do think that, it has had an effect on it because the jungle role is just much more simple. That being said, I do feel like the players are kind of like jumping the shark, so to speak. Like it's a little bit of like an early thing, like just be like, I can do support. And I know Treats came out and said like it's going to be a temporary thing for him and like it's only because it fits for the team. But I hope that players are really taking everything into consideration when they're doing this, because I think it could actually really negatively affect their career. Like Treats just had the best split of his career, right? And you're gonna now go and play a split of jungle, and it's like if it just goes horrible, does that not kind of like weigh on your mind when evaluating Treats? And same thing with Bwipo. Like Bwipo could have just joined another team if Fnatic wanted to get a new top laner or they wanted to get some other situation going. Like I do somewhat have the concerns that it's like, damn man, you're kind of really hurting your career potentially here if you go towards jungle, have a terrible split. yes, you were a really good top laner, but now it's like removed a bit. You know, if you play jungle for a year or whatever, and it doesn't go well. So I do think it's a big risk, and I just hope that the players are really taking into consideration the big picture of their like the impact on their career going forward.
I will say for Bwipo at least, he has played at least a lot of like jungle history and solo queue and stuff like that, and he has role swap before.
Quote. Did you see that?
Huh?
Did you see the Bear quote?
What
was like
it?
from Fnatic.
One of the best plays from our spring split.
Oh,
we knew Bwipo would be the perfect jungle fit when we saw his Volibear ult on top of Reckless and kill him off against G2 or whatever.
Part of the reason why we always congratulate and glorify successful lane role swaps like Ambition, like Xiaohu, is because it's so risky and difficult. Yeah. So I want that story to still be there, just because there has now been this very recent like influx, and they are different circumstances. I think that's a very good point that you point out about treats being temporary and all that. It is very different circumstances, but that is very important in expectation setting. Like, it is still a tremendous feat. I would also say, yes, this is one of the most likely metas where that shift isn't as punishing, because jungle is at one of its least complex states right now, and that's why actually a lot of especially older junglers like kind of starting to complain about how the importance on intelligent pathing and like the vision and information games part of jungle that was really prominent in the early seasons has been kind of dried up, I guess, for the role. So I definitely think it is easier now, but also still very difficult, and you still need that baseline and kind of context for all these roles. So like if Whipple comes in and he's one of the best junglers, like that is going to be an amazing feat, regardless. So.
Absolutely. All right. Looks like that'll do it for us. We're going to wrap it up for now. I think this is probably our biggest episode of all time when you include the draft in it. Pretty much 2 hours or very close. Yeah, thank you, Honda, for making this episode possible. And remember, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode of The Dive. You can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor.fm. And please send us your questions on Twitter using the hashtag DiveLOL. Voice messages, we will take those from Anchor.fm. And we have a weekend of incredible games to kick off the LCS coming at you. The LCS returns this Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific time. TSM versus Liquid, and we get the finals rematch of Cloud9 versus Team Liquid on Sunday at 3 p.m. Don't miss it.